Hello and welcome to this special edition of Inside the Americas. Coming up in the show, the Supreme Court is the new political battleground in the United States, with the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg opening up a seat at the country's highest judicial authority. We delve into the inner workings of that institution with input from author and journalist David A. Kaplan, and we take a look at two of the nominees who could fill that crucial seat. But first, it has the power to change or cancel a law and even to strike down a presidential directive. The Supreme Court has the final word in many key political decisions, but only when they violate the Constitution. Some say it has too much of a decisive role, putting the destiny of a nation in the hands of its 9 judges. Ellen Gainsford takes a look at the highest authority of the federal judiciary in the United States.
It's the highest judicial power in the United States. Founded in 1789, the Supreme Court is the country's ultimate legal voice and has the say on cases that originate in both state or federal courts. It's the third branch of the federal government and acts as a balance to the legislative and the executive branches.
You have 3 branches of government in the United States. You have the executive branch, which is the White House and all the agencies and the federal government there. Then you have the legislative branch, which is Congress. And then you also have the judiciary. You have at the top of that judiciary, the highest law in the land is decided by the Supreme Court. They interpret the laws that are legislated by Congress.
Each year, the 9 justices issue an opinion on around 100 cases. Some have forever altered the course of the nation. Brown v. Board of Education racially integrated public schools. Roe v. Wade legalized abortion. Bush v. Gore decided a presidential election. And Obergefell v. Hodges made same-sex marriage legal. The court's guiding document and its source of power is the U.S. Constitution. How its contents are interpreted is where the politics come in. The judges who sit on the bench are appointed for life by the president, but must first be vetted by the Senate Judiciary Committee and pass a vote in the Senate. As it stands, following the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 3 justices are considered liberal, while 5 are seen as more conservative. Donald Trump has already confirmed 2 judges during his presidency, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. If the Senate approves a 3rd Trump nominee, the court's conservative majority would be further solidified, opening the possibility for Republicans to finally fulfill certain campaign promises, such as repealing access to abortion, a decision that would shape the future for a generation of Americans.
Donald Trump has said he's keen to announce his nominee for the Supreme Court sooner rather than later, kickstarting a political fight that's set to weigh heavily on the upcoming election. The US president's confirmed that his pick would definitely be a woman, and 2 names have emerged: Judge Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Barbara Lagoa. Jean-Emile Jamin takes a look at these 2 nominees and what each could bring to the American judicial system.
At an Ohio rally on Monday, the US president showed his hand, announcing his criteria to fill the current Supreme Court justice vacancy.
The only thing I'll say for the women, it will be a woman.
While Trump said there were a group of 5 women to consider, 2 are believed to feature prominently on his shortlist: Judge Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Barbara Lagoa. Barrett, a law professor and mother of 7, is a judge on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals based in Chicago. She has continuously demonstrated her conservative bona fides on upholding Second Amendment gun rights, being forceful on immigration, and holding strong anti-abortion ideals. Her supporters have pointed out to the White House that as a Midwestern Catholic, Barrett may help the president secure votes for his re-election in vital Rust Belt and Great Lakes states, where he currently trails Democratic candidate Joe Biden. Other frontrunner, Judge Barbara Lagoa, is a Cuban-American from Florida, appointed to the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals last December. Her ties to the must-win state in the upcoming presidential election could bring some leverage for the position, but Trump has expressed skepticism about her conservative credentials after she drew the votes of 27 Democrats when she was confirmed as a federal judge. With a chance to name his 3rd new justice since entering the White House, Trump is now on the cusp of installing a firmly conservative majority for many years to come. But there are risks for the president.
Well, for some analysis of recent developments at the Supreme Court, I'm joined by David A. Kaplan, writer and journalist, and the author of The Most Dangerous Branch Inside the Supreme Court in the Age of Trump. David, thanks so much for joining us. Now, we know that President Trump is keen to name a successor to late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as quickly as possible. What do you put that rush down to?
Well, we have an election coming up in the United States, and there's already based on past confirmations, very little time to get it done. So if Trump wants his nominee confirmed by Election Day, and he names his nominee on this Saturday, he's going to have under 40 days, which would make it one of the fastest confirmations in modern times. If he merely wants to have the hearings before Election Day and have a vote after the election, and then there's more time. But there's risk in that, because if the president loses re-election, or if the Democrats retake the Senate, then a vote after Election Day sort of looks unseemly. And it might be that some Republicans, particularly those who may lose on Election Day, may not want to follow through with a vote to confirm. So the politics are tricky, and I think that's why Trump is trying to put his foot on the accelerator.
Looking back at Justice Ginsburg's time at the Supreme Court, she was involved in a number of progressive rulings favouring gender equality, arguing for women's autonomy over their own bodies, defending immigrants, for example. Do you think these legal precedents are now under threat?
Justice Ginsburg was the leader of the liberal coalition at the Supreme Court. You know, when Brett Kavanaugh replaced Anthony Kennedy a couple of years ago, you were essentially swapping in a conservative for a conservative. This time, you're presumably going to go from the liberal leader of the court to somebody very conservative, and the conservatives will cement a majority. This will be the most conservative Supreme Court in 3 generations in the United States, and the effect on abortion rights, on Obamacare, and a range of other issues could well be profound.
Now, Ginsburg came to this court in 1993. She remained there through the 2 Obama administrations. Just thinking strategically now, why do you think she didn't give up her seat during Obama's second term?
Well, we can look at what she said. She, of course, said there's no guarantee that an Obama nominee would have gotten through it all. She argued that any Obama nominee wouldn't be her, which would be true. They wouldn't be as liberal. That's all true. But I think the real reason is being a Supreme Court justice is a great gig. You work 9 months a year. You have summers off. You're surrounded by young law graduates, among the greatest minds in the country, young legal minds in the country who help you with your job. The court hears 60, 70 cases a year. You write opinions in maybe a fifth of them. You work in a great building, and on many social issues, you essentially run the country. Who wants to give up that kind of power? It's very hard to decide to leave. And only one justice in recent memory quit in his prime. David Souter quit in 2010. And he largely did so because he didn't love the job and he despised Washington. But if you look at when justices leave the court, either through retirement or by dying, in the last 25 years, they really wait until the bitter end. And I think the average tenure of the last half dozen or so justices who've left is close to 30 years.
Now, there are some concerns that the Supreme Court could decide on America's next president in case of disputed results, for example. Do you think that possibility will be weighing on lawmakers' minds right now?
It'll certainly be weighing on Republican minds, because to the extent you think we might have a replay of Bush v. Gore, you know, the 2000 Supreme Court decision that resolved the presidential election that was essentially tied back then between George Bush and Al Gore. If Republicans are worried about that, then they certainly want another presumably sympathetic justice at the court. I think that would be terrible for the country. If Bush v. Gore was bad, and I think, and have written that I thought it was the worst decision of the Supreme Court since Dred Scott in the mid-19th century. But this time, with multiple states having potential voting issues, not just a single state like Florida in 2000. This time, if these cases reach the Supreme Court, Bush v. Gore will look like child's play. My hope would be that the Supreme Court would have learned something since 2000 and would stay out of election matters that are essentially state concern. Do I have any hope that will take place? Not much, and Republicans desperately want to avoid a 4-4 court that would, in effect, be powerless.
Now, as I mentioned, David, your recent book, The Darkest Branch, explores the overarching power of the Supreme Court in the United States, making decisions that often have historical, political and social consequences. You just said there that it is a great gig. Would you say that putting the sort of power they have in the hands of 9 people is a flaw of the system?
In short, yes. My book, The Most Dangerous Branch, argued that whether you're a liberal or a conservative, you ought to be concerned that 9 unelected, unaccountable judges who sit there for life have so much power over American society, whether it's on abortion or gun control or disputed presidential elections or the Voting Rights Act or campaign finance or even same-sex marriage, the same-sex marriage question. I'm a political liberal. I, as a legislative matter, favor extraordinarily liberal abortion laws. I just don't think the Supreme Court ought to be involved in resolving them. I don't think it's a constitutional question any more than reasonable gun control is, or the reach of the Voting Rights Act, which the Supreme Court gutted in 2013, or a congressional decision to have campaign finance laws. Democracy isn't perfect, and there are some areas like free expression or criminal rights or gerrymandering where the Supreme Court ought to get involved, where the popularly elected branches of government aren't equipped to deal with those issues. But this Supreme Court and the Supreme Court in this country of pretty much the last 50 years has arrogated unto itself the power to make those decisions. That's ultimately bad for the court, and it's bad for the country.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, David. That's all we've got time for, unfortunately, this week. We'll leave you with images of the tributes flooding in for the notorious RBG, as Justice Ginsburg was known. Otherwise, we'll see you next time for Inside the Americas here on France 24.
So I believe the only way to make sure information is accurate is to actually go to the source and check it for yourself. And one of the most extreme cases I've had in my career was a fake genocide. An ethnic group had come in contact with us in Paris, a spokesperson, to tell us that, well, they were being wiped out by neighboring groups who were attacking them, and that this needed to come out because it was happening without the world knowing about it. So with my colleague, we decided to go there. And it was in Africa, a very remote place, 12 hours by 4x4 to get there. And then, well, the people there barred us from accessing the actual fighting place. They kept us about 5 kilometers outside and basically fed us a stream of so-called witnesses who were telling us some very dubious stories, including one young girl I remember who looked perfectly normal and basically told us her whole family had been wiped out, but was very unclear about the circumstances before she did selfies with us, telling us that she was so pleased to be on television. Basically, after a week of this treatment, we realized that no, this was not a genocide, that indeed there was violence in this city we were talking about, but it was all about controlling a migrant route in the middle of the desert. So, no genocide, but we did do one of the very first reports with one of these informal camps in the middle of the desert where they were keeping people.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.